Hello and welcome back to Rolling Solo. My name is Adam Smith. We are in the middle of the second day of this solo adventure in the world of Daylor, and we had left Ebendar in the previous day. We made our way to here, which we then scouted, found ourselves a goblin rioter off in the distance, and then on this second day we were able to encounter the goblin rioter, which also happened to come along with a Dire Wolf Pup, which we've populated on the game mat. So at this point in time, Patches is on the mat, ready to go, and we're going to move right into the very first round, essentially, which is denoted by the dice up on the initiative meter. All the initiative has been put into place, and we're ready to go. The only thing I want to mention before we move into this is just in terms of strategically placing your character. I have him here. We may have talked about this in the prior video, but I do want to make mention that both of these individuals are melee characters. They need to be in adjacent spaces, like here, 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 or here, in order to attack me. They cannot attack from a diagonal space. If there was range characters in play, they could, however, shoot me from range. So that's something to keep in mind. But for this particular fight, they're all up close and personal, and we'll see what happens. Lashback is an ability that when I hit this individual, he's going to lash back at me for 1 every single time. And Mischief is going to mess up my active dice. He's going to pull them away from me, get rid of them before he attacks me. So he's essentially going to take my defense dice away from me, or even any skill dice. However, currently I don't have any unlocked, so that's okay. But for defense dice, he definitely take those away from me. So let's get right into the very first round, see what happens. So very first round, the blue lane goes first. So that would be Mr. Goblin Rioter. Now at the very beginning of these enemies' turns, if they're not adjacent to you and cannot make an attack, they will move to do so. Based on what we had talked about before, that little arrow, or that targeting there with the person in the middle says go after the weakest character with the arms down. If it's the strongest character he's going after, then his arms are up. I'm the only character on the mat, so he's coming after me, and he can move up to 2 spaces. He's going to move here because that's the logical place to go. He wouldn't bother going around the long way just to get to here. So he moved the 1 spot to get next to me, and at this point in time, he's going to try to do his mischief to me, which does nothing because I have no active abilities, and he'll do his 1 attack, and you can see that by the 1 next to the attack die. So we go ahead and we roll our attack die, and what do we get? We get a bone, so that means his attack was null and void. Now, there are some enemies and baddies that actually have will have an actual keyword on their token that will say if they hit a bone, something happens, and it can actually be pretty nasty. So right now, it's perfect. We want bones with these guys because neither of them have that ability to trigger. But in future rounds, when these other baddies come out, there's other ones that actually use bones to their advantage to inflict pain on me, which I do not want. So we've gone ahead and finished with the Goblin Rider, so we moved that all the way to the top, and now I get to go next. So on Patch's turn, his innate ability allows him to heal 1, but he definitely can never heal higher than his limit based on his health from his stat kind of area. So he's got 5, he can't heal past that, and he can't buff himself up using heal, but there are abilities that can buff Patches, and if he gets them, we'll be putting them here in this area, and they get taken from here first. But buff HP is totally separate from your health or HP for your character. So we'll talk about that later, but essentially he can heal himself past his limit of 5. So he's kind of ready to go with an attack. So we can just choose who do we want to attack with and what dice do we want to use. Well, first off, I've never unlocked any skill dice with Patches yet, so that's a pretty obvious limitation right there. Dexterity allows me to roll up to a total of 3 dice if I want to. Other things you can do with Dexterity is pay 1 in order to move. You can only move orthogonally, so I can essentially go 1, 2, 3, and all my decks would be burnt. My whole turn's over. But there's no real reason to do that. I'd rather stick where I am, even though I'm surrounded, and make attacks, or at least try to defend. So you can see here from my particular stats, and you know this from prior videos, that I have 2 attack dice available to me here and 1 defense, and that totals to my 3. So I'm absolutely going to do that, and I'm going to target this Goblin Rider right here. The reason I'm doing that is he's got Mischief, and he's going to be able to steal from my active slots, which will stop me from defending, and I don't want that. So I don't mind this guy's lashback as long as I can defend against it. So let's try. Oh, we didn't get what we wanted. Hey, we actually did pretty good. So we ended up getting a 3 on the attack, which he has nothing to defend against. So 1, 2, 3 actually eliminates him from the game right like that. That was a clean kill, a pretty nice roll to start. So we just essentially take his die from the initiative track, put it aside. He had already gone during the round, so nothing to worry about there. So we've resolved these two by taking him off the mat completely, and we got a bone on our defense, so it just goes into the bone column. Anything sitting in the backup plan row does not count against what you can use in your totals here, but something that sits in the active slots can. So if you have a defense dice up here, you can't roll another defense dice if there's one sitting up in that row. So that's Patch's turn. So his turn is done. We can just tick him up to the top there. I'm going to put this up a little higher so it's out of the way. And the next person to go, of course, is the Dire Wolf Pup. Now, the Dire Wolf Pup is going to lash back, but he only lashes back if he's hit or attacked. And I never focused on him. I killed the Goblin instead. So the only thing he's going to do is do his far right ability there, the one with the sword. So he's going to do 1 attack die against me. And he gave me, ooh, he hit me for 2, not bad. So he got me for 2 there, that kind of hurt. And that's essentially it. That is the end of the first round. So now what we do is we flick that round counter to 2. We kind of reset our characters here, and I'm going to get to go first. Patch's innate ability, thankfully, is heal 1, and I've got 3 health. Let's give him an extra 1, so he's up to 4. And we are going to absolutely 100% roll 2 attack dice and 1 defense dice again, because we don't have anything stopping us by taking up either of these 2 in the active area. So we can do our 2 attack based on these 2 numbers and 1 defense to try to do some more damage to this guy and also potentially defend against anything he's got coming at us. Nice, that's a much better roll. So we end up getting a 1. So we'll put that 1 up in the active area. So as soon as I put that up there, this no longer applies. On the next turn, if this is still there, next turn per se, so that's like next round essentially, if this is still there somehow and the Dire Wolf Pup doesn't hit me and I don't use it, then I can't roll a defense die. But it's still good because I have that 1 defense against him. This, however, does 2 damage to him. So he loses 2 health and he's down to 1. So we've almost got him, but he also has lashback. So when we hit him for that 2, he hits us back for 1. Kind of nasty that way. So he's gone ahead and hit us. So now that's my turn successfully completed, and we move to the Dire Wolf Pup. So he's going to go ahead and do his attack. So here's hoping. I've got 3 health, so I can sustain anything. Oh, 2 hits. Jeez. So he's got me down to 1 health. So this is getting pretty tight. And you can kind of see, like, if you were a character that couldn't heal, this could be dicey. So, oh, sorry. He hit me for 2 health. My mistake, he didn't hit me fully. I have the 1 defense. So when I have 1, 2, 3 left, and he hits me for 2, I exhaust my active die to block 1, and I take 1. So I'm not as badly damaged as I thought I was. So there we go. And then my active dice tray is now kind of empty, and I'll be able to roll defense on this upcoming turn. So now this is the end of the second round. We'll bring these back down. We'll flip this round counter to 3. And we're going to go ahead and initiate my turn with Patches, who's, of course, going to do what he does best, and that's heal. I really like that ability. And as of right now, I can roll 2 attack and 1 defense because nothing's in my active, and I'm going to go after him hard and hope to get something. 2 hits. I think that's enough. Oh, sorry, 3 hits and a bone. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use the 2 bones at this point, because I know when I kill him, he's going to be gone. Now, just so you guys realize, once you're done an attack or your battle, your character comes back to your mat with however many HP he has on him at the time. So I want to try to heal Patches up as much as possible, because when you go to the kind of the middle game phase of doing your, and I'll have to find it here to get the right terminology, when you get to your individual options kind of section, when we do that recovery phase later on, you can choose to rest and recover to get your HP up to full, or you can search for better loot or scout the area. And I don't really want to spend that whole phase of recovery on having to put all my HP back. So let's do it now. So I'm going to spend, knowing that my backup plan is going to deplete anyway. I'm going to use my backup plan for heal gear lock to start. And this says right here, when you use your backup plan for 2, you heal any gear lock for 1 HP. Well, I'm definitely choosing myself. So that's gonna get me up to 1, 2, 3, 4 health. And then of course I'm doing my attack that I rolled against the Dire Wolf Pup. He's killed off, so his lashback does not trigger. So that's the nice thing about killing this guy off, is that his ability doesn't trigger. He's off the map and he's taken out, and done deal. We are done. That is the end of the battle. Pretty cool, huh? So we ended up actually being able to pull it off. And so this guy goes back to my battle mat. I can take this initiative chip back. I can reset the round counter to 1. I can take these dies and just drop them back in their lanes as they need to be. Like so, and we're all ready to go. Pretty cool. So we ended up surviving that, which is great news, because that means we're going to be able to take a look at the encounter card and see kind of how this all panned out. Now, one thing that I want to check real quick, just to make sure I do in order correctly, is after we do our successful encounter, if we are successful, then we go immediately to the reward phase. And in the reward phase is when we get all the things that are on our encounter card. So it says here, we're going to gain ourselves a, because we chose this and we succeeded, we're going to get that training point. We're also going to get an additional training point down here, and a loot, and a progress token. That's incredible. So it's a really great win for us. So let's go ahead and actually draw our loot. I think that'd be kind of a cool thing to jump into. Now, the one thing I want to be 100% sure of is that when I draw my loot, that how many cards do I get to draw? I think you just draw the 1, from what I understand from the rulebook. So I get the loot card, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. Actually, I'll take a quick look. Let's take a quick look at the symbols, because that's the best way to know, right? So here we go. Draw the number of, oh, each gear lock draws 1 loot. See the 3 chest symbol? So that's perfect. So I'm going to draw 1 loot. That's all I get. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now before I do my training points, because I'm kind of excited to see what I get. I got a stone hammer. Very, very cool looking. What does this do? Add 4 to an attack, to an action die result during your lockpick attempt. Huh? Add 4 to an action die result during your lockpick attempt. Interesting. Oh, I see what it's saying. You're essentially just getting overly aggressive and just hammering the lock off. So when we're going to go ahead and do potentially, trying to unlock something in the trove loot, we can essentially boost one of these action dies up by 4. So essentially we're forcing that lock to break off. That's pretty cool. So I'm going to put that next to patches. So we gain that loot. That's really cool. We also gain 2 training points. So hey, let's take a look at what we can do to train. Well, we want to be smart about this. We want to, this is where things get a little bit interesting. It would be good to have, it'd be really good to potentially have patches have a higher amount of health. That wouldn't be a bad idea. If we take a look at that section for the beginner build at the very beginning, where we talk about the reference sheet, it had mentioned that for stats, a dex and another attack die are your first priorities. Hey, we covered that. We actually got lucky and picked those 2 anyway. And then it said after that, looking at increasing your HP before going back for more attack or defense, you can get quite far on only 3-4 dex. So maybe it makes sense, like they were saying, to go for the HP. If I go for the HP, the one thing I could do is then maybe unlock a skill die. And the medkit skill die sounds pretty awesome to me. It would keep me alive. So hey, how about we do that? Let's first unlock the health. When we train health, it's an automatic success. So we get to automatically add 1 to our health. That's pretty awesome. When that happens, from my understanding anyway, and I just want to double check this really quick, because I think when you train your health, you actually get to boost your health up right away. Let me just see here. Oh, look at that. It says after training an HP, add 1 to your gear lock in addition to increasing the HP stat die. So not only do we get the +1 here, but we actually get to add 1 health to our gear lock. So now he's at 1, 2, 3, for 5. And the reason he said 5, remember, is because we were battling. We came out with 4, right? So that's all we had with us, because we had 4 health left, even though our max was 5 because of the battling we had done. And we tried our best to come back with 5. It didn't pan out. But when you train one, you not only get the stat increase on the stat area to have a max of 6, but you also get an additional health. And because I wasn't maxed at 5 at the time before I went to 6, I don't get 6. I just go from 4 to 5, which is still good. It's still a solid amount. Now what we're going to do is we're going to unlock the med kit. So I'm going to come over here and take a look at my roll of 16 dice that correlate to the 4x4 grid of stat dice here. I'm going to grab this one. This is the med kit. So essentially this die has a whole bunch of faces, like 2s, 3s, and all kinds of stuff like that. And I'm going to go ahead and roll this in game at some point in order to heal myself. And you can actually go to Patch's reference chart in order to find out more information about that. So what does that do? Well, you can look at the heart. That heart corresponds with that particular icon. So that's the second one on the list. And it says that it heals any gear lock for that number of HP. Pretty cool. It has an I before it, or after it, or right after its name. So it says here, used instantly. So again, that's one of those situations where you roll it, you use it, and then once it's used, it's exhausted, and it goes over to this exhausted area over here. So in the next battle, when we decide to use it, it'll come in handy to heal us quickly, but then it's gone. But still really, really cool. So at this point, we've essentially now finished this entire encounter. We now get to go ahead and gain the progress points. So like I did before on the first day, I'm going to take Drellen's card and just kind of go like this to just specify, hey, we've got 2 progress points. We're already 1/3 the way there. We only need to get to 6 in order to be able to encounter him. Now, the fun thing about this is that even though you might get to 6 real quick, you might not necessarily be strong enough to attack him, and if you try to fight him early, you might get beat pretty bad. But that's just kind of the way the game is. You might have to come back and fight him a couple times before you finally pull it off, if you get lucky. The other thing we get to do is progress our track. So we've now moved to here, and we got that progress point. So we're now almost just before the river. Essentially, we stopped right there. And that's essentially the end, at least from my understanding, the end of the day, because we just went through a rewards phase. The last phase, like we had talked about prior, was the recovery phase. And this is the cool one. There's always this handy little guide right here for the Gearlock Adventuring Reference Guide that kind of gives you like a flow chart of how things go. So you always do a new day, you do a new encounter. If you're successful, you do your this is essentially like your reward phase. So you divide the spoils, get training points, log process. But if you fail your encounter, you jump right to recovery, or if you pass, you get your spoils, and then you go to recovery. So we passed the new encounter, we just did the spoils, we did the training points, the logging of progress, and now we're moving to recovery, which allows us to do one of these 3 things. We can lockpick. Well, we have nothing to lockpick. We have a stone hammer, but we don't have any trove loot yet. We can loot trade, but we don't have any characters we're playing with, but we can do individual options. So we could choose to rest and recover. This would only allow Patches to go from 5 health up to 6, which, I mean, that's okay. But to me, it's kind of a waste. It's not really a useful thing. Or we could do something kind of weird here. It says search for better loot. Discard the 1 loot and roll 6 attack. For each bone you roll, reveal a loot card. You may keep 1. I kind of want to do that. I like the stone hammer though, because that's really going to help us to break into trove loot later on. So I might regret getting rid of it. That's the only downside. I don't know. No, you know what? I'm going to hold on to this stone hammer because I'm looking at the trove loot deck and I'm going, I think this is really going to come in handy for us to progress once we finally get a trove loot, whenever that occurs. So I'm going to actually hold off. I really wanted to do the discarding loot, but sometimes that doesn't always work out from this deck. You may or may not get what you want. So I'm going to do the scouting of the area again. We're going to scout from the river's edge here and see what we can find. So I got a 2, and the 2 says to reveal 1-point baddie. Perfect. When you reveal 1-point baddies, you're likely to see them eventually. Oh, look at that. We found another Dire Wolf Pup. These guys are a pain, but I don't mind them. They're okay. I mean, I don't like them, but I'm not going to put him to the bottom of the stack. I'm okay with facing him even though he hits me back. It's a little nasty, but I guess it could be worse. So I think that's it. That is the end. And that comes down, and then we flip to the next day. So this is essentially the end of the second day. That was the end of a full battle, the end of a full rewards phase, the end of a full recovery phase. And Patches is boosted up. He's now got 6 HP, although I've only got 5 on him currently. But he's got a 6 max now. He's got a new med kit unlock upgradable skill dice there, and he's got a stone hammer in his hands. And we're just on the brink of crossing a river in order to make our way up to Drellen. And I'm hoping that by the time we get there, we'll be strong enough to handle whatever encounters coming our way. So anyway, I hope you guys are enjoying this playthrough of Too Many Bones. This is my very first playthrough solo and playing with Patches. In other videos, I guarantee you 100% I will be playing this again in the future with the other pass. I want to go on the longer ones and see how that pans out, because I really think this game will branch into some pretty wild battles and really wild encounters. And I want to show you guys kind of how cool this game can really become. And you're going to see that coming up in these next episodes, how this game can branch and the different mechanics and the battling and everything. It's going to get interesting for sure as we increase Patches and make them stronger to handle the elements. So if you like what you see, give me a thumbs up. I hope you guys are enjoying. As always, if you haven't subscribed, please do. You can be part of the channel, be part of the solo community that is growing every day. I love all the feedback. I appreciate all the support as always. And as always, guys, keep rolling solo.